Welcome to Holy Ground Motherhood, a space for encouragement, reflection, and a reminder that the daily, ordinary work of motherhood is sacred and significant. I'm Julia Geiger, and each episode will explore the sacred in the messy, the holy in the mundane, and look for the Lord's work in the everyday moments of raising children. So take a breath, kick off your sandals, and let's walk together on this holy ground of motherhood. Hello, and welcome to our first official episode of Holy Ground Motherhood. My name is Julia Geiger. So a little bit about me. I am a mom, a stay-at-home mom of two boys. I have a 4-year-old and I have a 1-year-old. So I am just knee-deep in the toddler stage right now. A lot of life right now looks like my 4-year-old goes to preschool. He goes mornings 4 days a week, and so it's dropping him off and then hanging out with the 1-year-old and then picking him up a few hours after that. And we have nap times, and the afternoon looks pretty different kind of depending on the day. And the evenings, a lot of times dinner as a family. I have a husband. He does travel a fair amount, and my mom currently lives with us. She is a huge help while my husband is traveling, so that I'm not having to completely solo parent. But a lot of times that is what life looks like, is me and the boys and kind of just making life happen. And it's funny because when I was growing up and in my early 20s, I was pretty convinced that I didn't want kids. I never really saw myself as a mom. And I ended up getting married and, settling into life, and I ended up seeing, that, oh, this could be something really good. And I started to have a desire for it. And when I was pregnant, I think as a lot of us do, I had a very specific idea in my mind of what motherhood would look like. I had these pictures in my head, and most of them, were very romanticized, and they looked like a lot of, cute picnics in a park and, a lot of calm, sweet moments. And, there have been moments like that for sure. But I think as a lot of moms know, the ideas that we have before we're a parent, a lot of times reality looks very different. And it definitely did for me, for sure. Right almost immediately after I had my first child, I struggled very severely with postpartum depression. And I've struggled with depression in some form for most of my life. And so it's interesting that I saw it coming in a way, and I knew that it would be very likely that I would struggle with postpartum depression. But what it ended up looking like really caught me off guard. I imagined that even if I was going to have a really hard time, that I would feel connected to my child, and that I would, just feel so overwhelmed and obsessed with him, and all of these things. And of course, I loved him right away, but honestly, I did not feel that connection in those first days. And the the guilt that I felt as a result of the lack of connection that I felt with my baby. And I just remember thinking, like, okay, so we've got 18 years of this, and just had, honestly, a very sad, defeatist outlook for a long time, that this was how it was now, and that it, probably wasn't going to get better. And, um, as certain things settled in, like the sleep deprivation, and, I had a really hard time nursing. And all of that stress kind of compounded and added on, and added to this guilt of, I'm his mom. I'm supposed to be able to know how to do this, at least in some form, or, should want to figure this out, how to do this. And I just felt like I was a zombie, just walking in a daze through life. And I've had a very strong faith for a long time. I was raised in the church, and I've always had some sort of faith, but I really came to have a relationship with Jesus Christ at the age of 19. I did a gap year program after high school, and I was saved through a conversation with a mentor after sharing my story. And this faith, has had, like all of us Christians, its ups and its downs. And ultimately, I felt like it was in this strong place. And I knew like God is always with me. God is working things out for my good. And then the postpartum depression hit, and it felt like God was not with me. It felt like I had been abandoned by Him. I started to have all of these really awful thoughts about wanting to hurt myself, wanting to hurt my baby. And I felt like I couldn't tell anyone this. And I became really isolated, even though I had a lot of people who cared about me. And even though I honestly had a better support system than I think a lot of moms have, I isolated myself out of my feelings of guilt and shame and not wanting anyone to know, because I thought that it meant that I was a bad mom. And I mean, I did. I really delved down into this lack of hope. And it all felt like it stemmed from this feeling of God has abandoned me. God has left me here. Like I didn't even really want to be a mom at the start of all this. And even though, yes, like I chose to get pregnant, I chose to have a baby, I was like, oh, I had no idea what I was signing up for. And I was like, God, why did you let me do this? Really starting to blame Him and saying, where are you possibly in the middle of all of this? And there were several things that happened that thankfully got me out of that place, and I'll probably talk about some of them in later episodes, particularly a very important conversation that I had with my mother-in-law. But another one of those moments was, I remember, it's kind of one of those rare moments where, okay, baby's sleeping, so I'm gonna, take a shower. I'm gonna try to, feel like a human being again for 2 seconds. And I put this song on, or I put a playlist on. It was just a worship playlist. And the song Here Again by Elevation Worship comes on. And from the first lines, it just felt like it was speaking to me. Even the beginning of the song talks about that you can't go back to the beginning and you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but in the middle is where God promises to be. And later, the bridge of the song says, not for a minute was I forsaken. The Lord is in this place. And I felt in that moment the Lord speaking to my heart, where He said, not for a minute did I leave you. Not for a second. I am here. I am here in the mess. I am here in the pain. I am here in the struggle. I have not left you, and there is hope for it. And I clung on to that promise of, okay, even if it doesn't seem like He's here, I have to believe that He is. And I ended up getting help. I ended up getting on medication and was on it for the next 3.5 years. And it saved my life. And I'm so grateful that I was able to get out of that place. And I'm also so grateful for the lesson that I learned in that place, which is that no matter what it looks like, whether you're at the highest of highs or the lowest of lows or the most boring in between, that here in the middle of it all is the presence of God, that He has not left us. that He is here and that He is helping us through it. Even when we can't see the work that He is doing, He is doing it. And one of my favorite verses is Philippians 1:6, because it says, I know that He who began a good work in you will see it to completion on the day of Jesus Christ. And I really hold on to that verse, especially when things are looking rough and especially when I mess up, because it reminds me that God is not done working, that the one who started the work in me, that no matter how messy it looks, no matter how much I'm struggling or when I stumble and fall, that He's not done yet. And that I can trust in that I can get back up and dust myself off and keep going, because there's always hope, that there's a promise that He will finish the work that He has started. And I think that that's such an encouragement for us as mothers, because sometimes we get these huge mountaintop moments, this miracle in our life, and that transforms us. And I think that those things are beautiful and so valid, but more often than not, it doesn't look like that. It's not those huge, big moments. Our life is not made up of those. We get a few of those in our life. I mean, you read the Bible and that the heroes of the Bible, they get like 2 or 3, if they're lucky, of those huge moments with God. And the rest of it is the everyday faithfulness of serving Him and growing closer to Him and trusting Him, and Him slowly working and growing their character. And He's doing that in our life as well. And we can spend so long chasing those mountaintop moments that we forget that He's in the middle too, that He's in the ordinary and the mundane moments of our everyday life. So a couple of reasons why I started this podcast, this topic specifically of our ordinary mundane being seen as sacred, is that when I started this journey of motherhood, I had no idea what I was doing. And now I have slightly more of an idea of what I'm doing. I'm very early on in the journey. I have 2 toddlers. There's a lot that I have not gone through in terms of this journey of motherhood, this space of motherhood. And that is why my heart is that this podcast not mainly be my voice. So the kind of inspiration for this podcast is that I was listening, I think it was a TikTok a few months ago, and this woman was interviewing her mother, and it was just so cool and so refreshing to hear all of the wisdom that this woman had. And she had raised like 7 kids, was a stay-at-home mom the entire time. And I think she homeschooled all of them. I think that she, had given birth in her home to like 5 of them. And she was just this amazing woman. And to be able to hear her story was so inspiring. And it really unlocked something for me, because it was such a revelation to hear from this woman in, the generation above me, that we as a society have stepped away so much from listening to and learning from the wisdom of those who have gone before us. And I was thinking about how much value there is to be had in these women who have done it. They've raised kids and, maybe they're grandparents at this point. And they have so much wisdom to give because they have made the mistakes and they have learned from them, and they've learned from their small wins or their big wins and every moment in between. And instead of going through this alone and trying to figure out every step by ourselves, or even letting Google or, AI try to help us figure out how to parent, could I be a facilitator? Could I gather some of these voices around us in my community and offer their wisdom to other moms because I know I need it. And I think that there are a lot of moms around me who need it. And I think that there are a lot of moms who maybe they can't go to their mom or their grandmother and gain some of this wisdom for whatever reason, if the relationship isn't there, or if they no longer, have a mother, or, if there's a distance or whatever. Or even I think sometimes we just forget to ask. And I think that the older generation has started to shy away from offering that wisdom because I do think that there is this culture of, well, you need to let me parent the way that I want to parent. And so that means that I am not open for any feedback. I honestly believe it's kind of a toxic culture of self-reliance. And I believe it's a tool of the enemy, that he wants to isolate us from one another. And if he can get us to not trust one another, or to think, okay, well, because I don't agree with this part of how they parented, then I have to essentially throw the baby out with the bathwater and I can't listen to anything that it is that they have to say. And my hope is that by gathering a lot of voices, that there will be pieces that you can take away from each set of wisdom that they have to offer, and that we can learn from women's stories, that we can learn what to do, we can learn what not to do. And people are going to have different beliefs than you. People are going to have different methods, different ways that you would go about it. And that's okay. And it's okay to say, oh, I don't agree with that piece, or I can see the wisdom in that, but that's not what works best for me and my family. But my hope is to start to shift the perspective to say, can I listen and can I be open to gleaning from someone else's wisdom and being able to take some and leave the rest? And that's okay. And to be able to step away a better mom, a mom who feels more confident in her decisions of how she's parenting. And most importantly, can we walk away feeling less isolated because we see that there are women that struggle with the same things that we do, that have made the same mistakes that we make, that have had some of the same revelations that we've had? Can we learn in the ways that God has worked in other women's lives? And can we learn and see that maybe he could work that same way in our life? So I really want a good chunk of the episodes of this podcast to be interviews where I meet with a woman from my community and I just ask her questions. I just want to ask her story and ask her, what are some of the things that she's learned in motherhood? And what are some things that God taught her? What are ways that she saw God show up in her story and in her season of motherhood? And can we walk away with more confidence in how we parent as a result of hearing someone else's story? Can we walk away with some more empathy, some more mercy, some more grace for other women and ourselves? Because being a parent is hard. It is hard. And it is one of the most beautiful and holy things that we can do here on earth, is to take charge and grow this little life. There's something so sacred and holy in what we do when we choose to do it for the Lord. And say, we know we're not going to do it perfectly. And we know that there's going to be mistakes or mess ups or things that, we could have done better, maybe given the chance. Can we all experience a sense of community and belonging and oneness? Because the majority of mothers out there all have the exact same goal, which is to be the best mom that they can be, to see their children thrive. And the methods that we get there can look different, and can we all learn a little piece from one another? I'm hoping that the other piece of this podcast will not be my words or my wisdom, but really God's word and God's wisdom. That it'll be encouragement from the Bible, from His word, and that there's truth that we can always glean because the word is living and active. And we can read the same thing 5,000 times, and the 5,001st time there can be something new to learn from it. And I'm really passionate about studying the Bible, about helping other people to understand the Bible. And so I hope that this will be an outlet for that. So to start us off along that vein, I would like to read a section from Psalm 139 that as I was preparing for this first episode, I felt like the Lord had put on my heart that kind of went along with that moment in my story. And I think that it can bring encouragement to a lot of women's stories. This is Psalm 139, 7 through 12. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, behold, you are there. If I take up the wings of the dawn, if I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, even there your hand will lead me, and your right hand will take hold of me. If I say, surely the darkness will overwhelm me, and the light around me will be night, even darkness is not dark to you, and the night is as bright as the day. Darkness and light are alike to you. I love this section because it speaks to us that no matter where we are, the presence of God is there. That even when our work feels hidden, His presence is there. And where His presence is holy ground. It doesn't matter what it is, whether we're dealing with the tantrum of a toddler or the attitude of a teenager, if we're in the middle of 2 a.m. cluster feedings or cleaning up a messy kitchen for the 5th time that day, if we're helping kids with homework or trying to encourage them, get them ready for school in the carpool line, that every piece of motherhood, Jesus is there. The presence of God is there. I got the idea for the name of this podcast, Holy Ground Motherhood, because I was thinking about Moses and the burning bush. And there's this moment where God comes to meet with Moses, and he's going to send him on this mission to free the Israelites from Egypt and set them into a land of their own, a land that God has promised them. And when Moses approaches this bush that is on fire, that is holding the presence of God, God tells Moses, take off your sandals, for the ground which you are standing is holy ground. And I love this picture that anywhere that God is, it's holy ground. And there's something about taking off your shoes. I was thinking about how in many cultures, and honestly, even in a lot of people's houses, in modern day America, that taking off your shoes is a sign of respect when you enter someone's home. But it's also a sign of intimacy. Like you're welcome there, like you're a part of the family. And I was thinking about how when God tells Moses to take off his sandals, he's not just telling him, respect me. And that is a piece of it. But he's also saying, come into my presence, come into relationship with me, engage with me, a place where you are welcome. And he doesn't want there to be any barriers in this intimate moment between him and Moses. That same invitation is there for us today, that any moment we invite God's presence into our life is a holy, intimate moment, that there is respect because He is our God, who we serve, who we obey. He is our Lord, but He is also our Father. There is intimacy. It says that we can walk boldly into the throne room of God because God desires to show kindness to his children as a good father does. And we see and we feel that intimacy and that welcome when we are in his presence, and we can bring that wherever we are, no matter what, no matter how messy the situation is. God is there, and the invitation is there to welcome him into our space and to say, whatever you want to do here, I'm open. Show me how you want to make this space holy and sacred, because I'm not doing it for me. I'm not doing it for other people, but I'm doing it for you. And we can trust that in the middle of what feels painful or slow or even boring, that God is there. Isaiah 41:10 says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will hold on to you with my righteous right hand." And that's the promise. Not just, as amazing as it is, that the God of the universe, that his presence can be in your everyday life, but that in the midst of that, he will help you. He will guide you. He will hold on to you, so we don't have to be afraid, because whatever is going on, he is our strength. Even if the world is falling down around us, that he is the one who holds us up with his hand. He is the God who sees you in the middle of your mess, in the middle of your pain, in the middle of your ordinary. He is the God of good and bad and everything in between. Everything in our life lives and breathes and moves through him. And when we focus our eyes onto that, when we fix our perspective, that is already truth, that is already reality, it transforms how we live. That we can live out of that truth rather than out of the lie that we are alone. Because when we live out of the lie that we are alone, we are anxious, we are fearful, we let anger take over, we're trying to protect ourselves from everything because we think that we have to do it all ourselves. We think that no one else is going to help us in this situation, but it's a lie. It's a lie from the enemy. And the truth is that God, your God, is a God who loves you, and he is with you every moment of every day. And all we have to do is cry out to him and say, Lord, I need you. And he is there helping us. His spirit is inside of us, and all we have to do is fix our eyes on what is already true, that he desires to help us, that he desires to show us kindness, and that he is there for us, ready and willing to help us the minute that we say, I submit. Whatever it is that you want to do, I lay it at your feet. I relinquish control of every little thing that I'm trying to do to hold it all together as a mom, because especially as a mom, that is such the temptation to say, I'm the one that has to hold it all together, because if I don't, everything falls apart. But he is saying, I am the one who is holding on to you. Even as you're the one who is holding together schedules and getting to the appointments and making sure their kids are bringing their lunch to school and making sure they're doing their homework and holding them when their heart is broken or when they fall and scrape their knee. He is the one who is holding you as you hold your children. And we can rest in that. We can lean back and rest in his arms, because he is a good father and he will not let us go. He will strengthen us. He will help us. He will hold on to us. So I'm someone who likes not just inspiration, but practicality. And I like things to actually be, okay, give me steps. 1, 2, 3. How can I do this? So how can I start to see God in motherhood? And I have a couple of suggestions here. Number 1 is this thing called breath prayers. And there's this great book. It's called Breath as Prayer by Jennifer Tucker. I recommend it. And basically how it works is that it's rooted in scripture, and you basically tie a prayer or a verse to your breath. And so let's say, you're in the middle of something, you're in the middle of a meltdown, and you're like, all right, God, like I need you in this moment, but you don't even have the strength to just get out a full prayer. All you can do is just breathe in and breathe out. So, one of the ones that from this book that she recommends is you breathe in and you say, "The Lord is my shepherd," and you breathe out and say, "I have all that I need." Breathe in, "The Lord is my shepherd." Breathe out, "I have all that I need." And you're doing that a couple of times. And what it's doing is one, the practice of controlling your breath is been shown to be very effective to getting a moment and having more patience because it lowers your heart rate and kind of regulates your nervous system. And so you're not acting out of impatience or anger or overstimulation, but you're acting out of what is true, who is the mom that I actually want to be. And the second is that it's getting truth in your brain, is that you're getting these little verses, just bite-sized chunk verses into your brain that you're going to in moments of crisis or moments where you feel like you're out of strength. And it starts to change the way that you live because it starts to change to your first reaction being to seek God's help rather than trying to control everything on your own. Number 2 is gratitude. Gratitude is so powerful. My mentor talks about how you cannot express gratitude and complain in the same breath. And there's something so powerful about that. And so, whether it is at the end of the day, you are going to journal, you're going to write down what are 3 things from today that I am grateful for. And we can all, no matter what we are going through, we can all have something to be grateful for. We can be grateful for our kids. We can be grateful that we are alive. We can be grateful that God is good, that there are even just the most basic things, and they can be vague, they can be specific, however you want to do that. But we start getting into the practice of gratitude. You can do, like I said, journal at the end of the day. For a little while, I had 2 timers go off on my phone in the afternoon and in the evening. When those timers went off, I had to say out loud one thing that I was grateful for. And one thing that actually ended up being really cool about this is a lot of times when my timer went off, I was in front of my toddler. And so I would tell him, I'd say, "Okay, Ezra, mommy is really grateful that she has such a great buddy in Ezra." And then I would say, "Okay, Ezra, what are you grateful for?" And it was really funny because when he first started, he had no idea how to do it. Like I had to explain to him what gratitude was, first of all. I was like, "What's something that makes you happy right now?" And he would go, "I'm grateful for that door right there. I'm grateful for, the table." Like it would just be stuff that was right next to him. And I'd be like, "Okay, that's fine. We're just starting this practice. It doesn't need to be super deep." But it was amazing to me how quickly he caught on the things that I would say that I was grateful for, and he would start to go really deep. And I remember one day I was having a really hard day, and I don't even remember what I told him that I was grateful for, but he said, "I'm grateful that mommy and daddy and Nana take care of me." And it just was so beautiful and so innocent and so sweet that it really brought me out of the bad day that I was having to see, like, oh, this is not just affecting me, but this is changing my son as well. And that is something that is so valuable and powerful and can transform us. And so, no matter how it looks, if there's just a little moment in your day that you can say, "This is the moment that I'm going to focus on gratitude." And if you can invite your kids into that, all the better. Even if it starts out awkward, even if your kids are older and they think that it's lame at first, anything that you do with consistency becomes a practice and it changes our heart. Number 3, just simple prayers throughout the day. In those moments where you feel overwhelmed, or even if something is really good is going on, you can say, "God, thank you. Thank you for helping me." Or if you're having a hard time and you need his strength and you feel like you're running out, you could just say, "God, I need you." Even that's it. That's all you could say is just, "God, I need you." And that is powerful because it's inviting him into our struggle. It's inviting him into our day, and to be able to have little moments throughout the day where you're just talking to God. It will start to change your heart so that you will no longer see yourself as alone throughout your day, but that you have a God who is with you every second, who cares for you so deeply. All of these things help us to see that God is with you in every moment, and He sees the work that you are doing in your mothering. Every episode, I will have a verse to encourage you with. And if you're open to a challenge, I would challenge you to try and memorize a verse. Even if it's once a week, I'm going to memorize a new verse, or once a month, I'm going to memorize a new verse. So something that I do is I will write down the verse on a note card, and I'll have like 4 different note cards with the verse, and I will place those in spots around my house that I know that I'm going to be multiple times throughout the day. And every time I see the card, I'm going to say it out loud to myself. And as I've done it a few times, then I try to say it without looking at it. And that will help me to try and memorize the verse. And it's just something that you can pull out of your back pocket when you're in a moment of overwhelm, or where you're having a hard time, or you're having a moment where you're like, I don't want to trust right now. I don't want to choose the good thing right now. Or the enemy is lying to you, that you can have this truth in your back pocket and you have it memorized. You have it ready to go, ready to fight for truth in those moments where you want to believe the lies. So the verse for this episode is Deuteronomy 31:8, which says, "The Lord Himself will go before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or abandon you. Do not be afraid or discouraged." Thank you so much for listening to this first episode of the Holy Ground Motherhood podcast. I appreciate you sticking it out this long if you did. I hope that there will be more. I'm hoping in a few weeks to be able to interview my mom as my first official guest, and be able to get some of her hard-won wisdom and be able to hear her story. And I hope that that will encourage you all. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Holy Ground Motherhood podcast. My prayer is that you leave this conversation reminded that God is with you, even here, even now, in the middle of your ordinary moments. If this episode encouraged you, I'd love for you to share it with another mom who might need that same reminder. And if you want to dig a little deeper, you can download this week's reflection page and memory verse linked in the show notes. Until next time, may you find holy ground right where your feet are.